A very good evening, students. Welcome to Learn Affair. From today, we are starting a new series on evolution, which is beneficial to the students of CSIR-NET, GATE, NEET, as well as the board students also. In this particular lecture, we are going to discuss about the origin and history of life on Earth. Okay, let's start. As we know, Earth formed around 4.6 billion years ago from a solar nebula, which was a cloud of gas and dust surrounding the young sun. Initially, the planet Earth was extremely hot because of the frequent meteorite bombardments and volcanic eruptions. Okay, these bombardments and volcanic eruptions made the atmosphere to fill with gases like CO2, water vapors, methane, ammonia, hydrogen gas, and H2S. Okay, and there was no free oxygen. The atmosphere was reducing in nature. It means reducing environment means the environment which contains gases like CO2, H2O, vapors, methane, NH3, H2 and H2S, like these kind of gases which are accumulated in the atmosphere. This type of atmosphere is called reducing atmosphere. This kind of atmosphere favor prebiotic chemical reactions. Okay, as earth cooled, water vapor condensed to form oceans. Okay, and these conditions were suitable for the creation of life. There are various theories which try to explain the origin of life on earth. We will study these theories one by one. Okay, let's start with the theory of special creation. This theory states that life and universe were created by a supernatural power, which is God. Okay, all species were created in their present form, independently of each other. Okay, species were fixed and permanent, do not change with time. Humans were created separately and do not share ancestry with any other organism. This theory says that all the species were created in their present form. There was no evolution of species, and humans were created separately and do not share ancestry with any other organism. Okay, and according to this theory, this whole universe was created in 6 consecutive days. On the very first day, God created the light for the separation of day and night. On the second day, sky was formed. Okay, on the third day, land and seas were created. On the fourth day, sun, moon, and stars were created by the God to govern day, night, and all the seasons. On the fifth day, aquatic animals and birds were created. On the very sixth day, creation of land animals, and finally man was created on the sixth day, and which is considered the supreme creation of God. And according to this theory, on the seventh day God rested, and this day was considered a holy day. Okay, according to this theory, all organisms appeared at the same time with no evolutionary process involved, which is baseless. The earth was believed to be very young, only few thousand years old. This theory is rooted in religious beliefs. There were no scientific evidence of this theory to be true. These are the following limitations due to which this theory was rejected. The first is the theory is not based on scientific evidence, but it is only dependent on the religious beliefs of people. The fossil study shows that life form appeared gradually over geological time, okay, not all at once. Discovery of extinct species proves that life forms are not fixed and permanent. This theory said that all the life form are fixed and permanent, but the discovery of extinct species proves it is not fixed or permanent. Changes occur over time. Comparative anatomy also shows similarities between different organisms. So it states that there was a common ancestry, and these all the life form were not independently created. Then embryological studies reveal that embryos of different animals show similar early developmental stages, indicating evolutionary relationships. All these evidences rejected the theory of special creation. Then the theory of abiogenesis. The biggest supporter of this theory was Aristotle. Aristotle was the biggest supporter of this theory. This theory states that life originates from non-living matter. Life exists from non-living matter such as mud, dirt, and decaying material. According to this view, simple organisms like worms, insects, and frogs could arise directly from the soil, dung, or rotting matter without any parenting organism. And as I already told you that the biggest supporter was Aristotle, who believed that living beings could appear naturally from the non-living material. The common examples once cited included maggots, which arise from decaying meat, frogs, and fishes appeared from mud, and mice being formed from stored grains and rags. For centuries, this theory was widely accepted because people observed life form emerging in places where no parent seemed to exist. This theory suggested that abiogenesis was continuous and ongoing process, which is uh, not true at all. In 1668, a scientist, Francisco Redi, performed an experiment to challenge the theory of abiogenesis. In this experiment, he placed a piece of meat in an open jar, in a tightly sealed jar, and in a jar which is covered with the cloth netting. The jar which is left open, in this jar, maggots appeared, but in the tightly sealed jar, no maggots were present. Same in the case of the jar with net. The reason was that in the open jar, flies used to lay eggs on the meat. Okay, and these eggs were then transformed into maggots. So the maggots appeared not because these arise from non-living matter, but due to the contamination of the flies used to lay eggs on the meat pieces, and due to which these eggs were transformed into the maggots. Okay, this was the real basis of this Reddy's experiment, that the reason behind the occurrence of maggots is the contamination. Same experiment was performed by Splenzani, okay, which showed that boiled broth in a sealed container did not give rise to microorganism, proving life did not appear spontaneously if contamination was prevented. And finally, Louis Pasteur in 1861 completely disapproved abiogenesis with his swan neck flask experiment, showed that microbes come only from pre-existing microbes. So here is this is Splenzany experiment, and this is swan neck experiment by Louis Pasteur. Splenzany boiled a flask, boiled an uncovered flask, and wait for some time and observe that there was a bacterial or microbial growth in the flask. But when he sealed the flask and sterilized it, there no such growth was observed. Similar experiment was conducted by Louis Pasteur, in which he took a swan-shaped flask and boiled it. No such growth was observed in this case. When he broke the piece of glass from here and wait for some time, microbial growth was there. Okay, so this experiment disapprove the theory of abiogenesis and states that life exists from, or life arises from pre-existing life. Okay, then there was the theory of panspermia. Theory of panspermia. According to this theory, life did not originate on Earth but came from outer space. This theory is also known as Cosmozoic theory, and according to it, life doesn't originate on the Earth but came from the outer space. According to this theory, small microscopic life form, or the seed of life called spores or pansperms, existing throughout the universe and were carried to Earth by the celestial bodies such as comets, meteors, or cosmic dust. The first idea of this theory came in the mind of Anaxagoras, which was a Greek philosopher who suggested that life exists everywhere in the universe and spread from one place to another. Then the modern scientific form of this theory was proposed by Arrhenius in 1908, who suggested that bacterial spores could be propelled through space by radiation pressure and eventually land on the suitable planet like Earth. According to this view, Earth only provided favorable condition to these spores like water, nutrients, and atmosphere for these seeds to grow and evolve, but actually the origin of life happened outside the Earth. So this was the view of this theory. Some seed called panspermia entered the Earth with the help of celestial bodies, and Earth provided the suitable environment to these spores, and life originated from that spore. This was the view of the theory of panspermia. Scientists like Richter, Kelvin, and Helmholtz also supported this theory, and there were some variation in panspermia. Include the lithopanspermia, means life traveled between planets via rocks ejected by impacts. Radiopanspermia, which means spore pushed across space by light pressure, and directed panspermia means life was intentionally sent to the Earth by an advanced civilization. So this was the view of the theory of panspermia, and these were the limitations of this theory due to which it was rejected. It doesn't explain the true origin of life but only transfer the problem from Earth to another part of the universe. Space is extremely harsh with intense cosmic radiation, vacuum, and extreme temperature, making long-term survival of spores approximately impossible. Speed and distance required for spores to travel across interstellar or interplanetary space are enormous or impossible to cover. Okay, no such evidence was there, no scientific evidence was there, so it was also rejected. This theory was also rejected. Then the theory of catastrophism and multiple creation. This theory was given by Cuvier in from 1969 to 1832, which was a French naturalist and a paleontologist. According to him, the history of Earth and life is shaped by a series of sudden, violent catastrophes, which means the natural calamities like flood, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes. According to him, there was already a population there. Then a catastrophe occurred due to which all the older population was killed and new sets of organisms were created to repopulate the earth. This was the main basis of this theory. This explains the experience and disappearance of different fossil in successive layer of rock. According to Cuvier, species are fixed and do not evolve. Instead, new creation replace the existing ones. In this graph, you can see, let us consider this was the population already existing before, and at their saturation point a catastrophe occur or natural calamity occur due to which all those population extinct and new species took their place. This was the theory of catastrophism. The next theory is the theory of chemical evolution, which provide the experimental basis of the origin of life. This theory was given by Oparin and Haldane. According to this theory, life originated only on early Earth through gradual process of chemical changes in non-living matter, leading to the formation of simple organic molecules. This theory states that from non-living matter, living matter is created by gradual chemical changes. Chemical changes. And these living matter were initially simple organic molecules, then these were converted into complex molecules. Oparin suggested that early Earth had reducing atmosphere which contained gases like methane, ammonia, hydrogen and water vapor with almost no free oxygen. Haldane proposed that UV radiations and other energy sources provided energy for the chemical reaction, leading to the synthesis of organic compounds in the primordial soup, a warm ocean of organic molecules. These molecules accumulated over time and formed the first simple life-like structure. They called them caesariids or protocells that eventually gave rise to the primitive cells. So, according to Oparin and Haldane, life originates from non-living matter, okay, by gradual process of chemical changes. Firstly, simple organic molecules were formed from non-living matter, and later these were assembled into complex biomolecules. According to this theory, process occurred in the following step. First, abiotic synthesis of simple organic molecules. Firstly, simple organic molecules were formed from non-living matter. Then polymerization of these molecules into complex macromolecules. Okay, amino acid polymerized to form, sorry, to form proteins. Okay, then aggregation into protocells and caesar that could maintain an integral environment, then development of self-replication and metabolism. This theory was widely accepted as the most scientific explanation for the origin of life. So this is a diagrammatic representation of this theory. Firstly, simple organic molecule were there. Okay, from inorganic molecules, organic molecules were created, and in the presence of radiation, these were converted into complex structure, and these complex structure polymerized to form RNA and peptide like structures. The experimental proof was given by Miller and Urey. Okay, they used an apparatus to depict or to show in this flask these gases, and this kind of reducing environment, this kind of reducing atmosphere was created by Miller and Urey. Also, they provided electric sparks to this flask. Then a vacuum pump was also connected. Sorry, vacuum pump was also connected, and through this hot vapors were moving, and this condenser make these water molecules cooler. Okay, provide low temperature. So let us discuss this experiment in detail. They performed this experiment in 1953 by performed by Stanley and Miller. They designed an apparatus which stimulated the early Earth's environment. Like, this apparatus contained methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapors. Also, boiling water in the flask produced water vapors. Then these gases were subjected to continuous sparks between electrode to mimic lightning, which was the major energy source that time, and the gaseous mixture was then cooled in a condenser, causing water and dissolved compound to collect in a trap called the primordial soup at that time. After running the experiment for about 1 week, Miller analyzed the liquid, found that it contained several organic compounds. After several cycles of this experiment, he found some organic compound in the apparatus. Those organic compounds were amino acids, hydrocarbon, and simple organic molecules. This proved that abiotic synthesis of biomolecule is possible under stimulated early Earth conditions. This experiment was a landmark in origin of life studies, as it gave the first experimental support to the theory of chemical evolution. These were the limitations of this theory. The actual composition of Earth's early atmosphere is debated. It means it may not have been strongly reducing. The experiment produced only small quantities of biomolecules, not complete life form. Later, modifications of the experiment using different gases, UV light, volcanic conditions, deep sea vent simulation provided a wider variation of organic compound, including nucleotides and sugar. After that, this theory was suggested, which is RNA World Hypothesis, which proposes that RNA was the first genetic material. During the early stages of life evolution, during the early stages, RNA was the first genetic material. It was suggested by Alexander Rich in 1962 and popularized by Gilbert in 1986, who coined the term RNA world. Okay. This idea was based on the unique property of RNA. It can act both as genetic material and act as a catalyst like protein. Okay. Early life forms may have dependent on RNA to store information, self-replicate and catalyze biochemical reaction before DNA and protein evolved. Here you can see at that time RNA act as the genetic material and which was solely responsible for the production of protein. But after the study of central dogma, this study revealed that DNA is the genetic material of organism, which is then transcribed into mRNA, and mRNA will be translated to form proteins. These were the evidences that supported this theory. First, the ribozymes, RNA molecules that can catalyze reaction. Okay, ribozymes means RNA molecules that can catalyze the reactions, self-splicing introns and RNA-based enzymes. Then ribosomes, the protein synthesizing machinery of all the cell. Ribosomes are the protein factory, are themselves ribozymes where the catalytic activity is due to rRNA, not proteins. RNA can both copy itself and help to form peptide bonds, suggesting the translation role between chemistry and biology. So these were the factors which provide evidence to support this. According to this theory, simple RNA molecules formed abiotically on primitive Earth. Some RNA molecules acquired ability to self-replicate, and these replicating RNA evolved into protocells, which were the initial or we can say the first cells. Later, DNA and proteins gradually replaced RNA as the main biomolecules. This theory explains how life could begin with a single type of molecule before the evolution of DNA protein system. Then how prokaryotes formed in on the primitive Earth. How the first prokaryote arose. We can say prokaryotes were the first living organism on Earth and appeared about 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. Fossil evidence come from stromatolites, which is the layer structure formed by cyanobacteria found in the rocks about 3.5 billion years old in the Western Australia and South Africa. The earliest prokaryotes evolved from protocells, which were simply membrane-bound structures formed by aggregation of organic molecules in the primordial soup. They were anaerobic heterotrophs, meaning they obtain energy by fermenting organic molecules as free energy was absent in the primitive atmosphere. Okay. These prokaryotes then evolved the ability to use solar energy. Primitive photosynthetic bacteria used hydrogen sulfide instead of water. Later, cyanobacteria evolved oxygenic photosynthesis and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. This led to great oxidation event, which was in 2.4 billion years ago, which drastically changed Earth atmosphere, paving the way for aerobic respiration. You all know that. It is very simple and not a tough topic or not a difficult topic to understand. Okay, prokaryotes diversified into two main groups, archaea and bacteria. Archaea adapted to extreme environments like high temperature, salinity and acidity, and bacteria were more widespread, including cyanobacteria, heterotrophic bacteria and nitrogen fixers. And see this statement: the origin of prokaryotes is directly linked to the chemical evolution and the RNA world hypothesis. As self-replicating RNA and simple metabolic pathways probably preceded the DNA-based cells. Molecular evidence shows that prokaryotes are the common ancestors of all present-day life. Their simple structure, rapid reproduction, and metabolic diversity made them the foundation for the all later evolution, including the rise of eukaryotes. In this image, you can see that first protocells were appeared in 4.0 billion years ago. Then first prokaryotes appeared 3.8 to 3.5 billion years ago. Photosynthetic bacteria arise 3.5 billion years ago. The cyanobacteria 3.2 to 2.7 billion years ago, and great oxidation event occurred 2.4 billion years ago. Then how eukaryotes evolved, or how eukaryotes formed in those conditions. Eukaryotes are the organism whose cells have a true nucleus, we all know that, and membrane bound organelles. It is believed that eukaryotes were originated around 2.1 to 2 billion years ago, much later than prokaryotes. Most accepted explanation is the endosymbiotic theory, which was proposed by Margulis in 1970. According to this theory, eukaryotic cells evolved when large ancestral prokaryotic cells like archaea engulf smaller prokaryotes, bacteria like, in a symbiotic relationship. Okay, when large prokaryotic cell engulfed smaller prokaryotes. Okay, these were the evidences where mitochondria are believed to have originated from aerobic bacteria or proteobacteria that were engulfed by primitive host cell. Similarly, chloroplasts are believed to be originated from cyanobacteria that were engulfed by a eukaryotic ancestor. Both mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own circular DNA, 70S ribosomes, and double membranes similar to bacteria. They divide by binary fission also, independent of the host cell cycle. Early eukaryotes were probably unicellular and heterotrophic, but later some developed photosynthesis after acquiring chloroplast. Initially, they were unicellular and heterotrophic, which means they were dependent on some other organism. But after acquiring the property of chloroplast, they become photosynthetic. The first two multicellular eukaryotes appeared 1.6 billion years ago. By 1.2 billion years ago, many lineages of multicellular organisms like algae, fungi, early animals were evolved. Around 600 to 541 million years ago, during Cambrian explosion, eukaryotes diversified rapidly into most major groups of modern animals and plants. Thus, origin of eukaryote represents a major evolutionary transition, enabling the rise of complex life forms. So this is the flowchart of the endosymbiotic theory. You can draw it or you can remember. So that's all in today's lecture. It was very basic, and not that kind of topic it is to explain deeply or you can remember easily. So that's why I wrote everything in this presentation. So if you want this presentation, you can mail us at official.learnsophia.11@gmail.com. We will send you this particular PPT, and if you want detailed notes of evolution, we can also send this. Just mail us at official.learnsophia.11@gmail.com. So that's all for today's lecture. Thank you so much.